Sometimes it feels like I'm not good at anything, which, okay, I'm okay at a lot of things. I'm fine at guitar, I'm passable at chess, I'm not too bad at softball. You throw the ball at me, I'll probably catch it. Obviously very good at video editing, but I'm not great at anything. And that's because I never ever stop hobby hopping. I've had a billion hobbies, I've bought all the stuff for them, and then I forget about them. Why do I have these pickleball paddles? I've never used these pickleball paddles. Look, the wrapping's still on. But a recent internet trend made me feel a little bit better about it. You know, the idea that
buying craft supplies and then actually using them are two different hobbies.
Collecting fabric and sewing are two different hobbies.
Reading books and buying books.
Buying books and reading books are different hobbies.
Buying stuff for a hobby is a completely separate hobby from actually doing the hobby. So I guess my hobby is getting all the stuff for and then abandoning hobbies.
Their new hobby? Yeah, you kind of seem to be collecting hobbies. Yeah, it's bad. So you just keep cycling through them? Actually, I just keep adding more in.
So great. My hobby is buying shit. And I'm not alone. It turns out the entire collective internet's hobby has just devolved into buying shit, but it wasn't always like this. Jean Baudrillard, that's right baby, it would not be a video essay if I didn't reference some dead fucking philosopher. Wait, is he dead? Jean Baudrillard. Yeah, he's super dead, we're good. Anyway, Baudrillard thought the problem with consumerism wasn't that we manufacture too much crap, but that we manufacture too many needs. We're told by ads and by culture and by each other that we can't truly be happy without buying something or another. Rip to Baudrillard, you would have loved Funko Pops. This was a gift. And nowhere is doing it better than in consumption communities. Credit to this video by not buying it for introducing me to the idea, but the concept of a consumption community or an online consumption community isn't too hard to wrap your head around. It's a community based around buying things and encouraging each other to buy things. You know, look what I bought, which product should I buy, look at my collection, and so on. This would be, you know, your sneakerheads, your Funko Pop millennials, your skincare girlies, like me. When I found r/skincare addiction, I was stoked. I had just terrible pizza face. So I thought, finally, I don't have to rely on bullshit TV commercials or commissioned salespeople to learn what products can actually fix these gigantic fucking volcanoes of pus on my face.
This is it. I can't stop that. That's why I use Proactive.
I can find out what works for real people. And so I did. I bought and bought way more products than TV or ads had ever managed to sell me, and still absolutely nothing helped. I checked skincare addiction daily, trying to figure out what to buy next. These communities are way better profit boosters than traditional advertisers could ever hope for. Because while skincare addiction made me more savvy to bullshit ingredients, and that didn't make me a much more savvy consumer. It just made me an over-consumer. I felt like the people online on these subreddits and YouTube videos were my friends or a part of my community, and them recommending a product to me was just like a good friend saying, hey, here's what worked for me. That doesn't feel like advertising. I learned from my new friends at Skincare Addiction that a proactive 3-step treatment just ain't gonna cut it. I needed an oil-based facial cleanser, a foam-based facial cleanser, a serum, exfoliant, a daytime moisturizer, inclusive. For God forbid you forget the SPF. And at a certain point, I bought all of that shit and used it like daily. Like I had basically almost a 10-step skincare routine. And that shit did not help. In case you're wondering, it was hormonal. My doctor prescribed me spironolactone and I was fine. And then I turned 25 and I stopped taking it. And now, I mean, a bit of a situation here, but for the most part, we're good. Anyway, that's why advertisers have been trying to figure out how to harness the sheer profit-generating machinery of the online consumption community through influencers, through shareable aesthetic packaging, through sassy brand Twitters and Tumblrs, and, according to certain papers I read, through subtle manipulation of the online consumption communities themselves. Other people, you know, with your interests and goals, telling you what to buy and telling you to buy more is just gonna work better than any traditional ads ever could be. So of course they're pouring their money into it. And that is exactly why all online communities are becoming consumption communities. And it seems like everyone online has a story about this. I tried to get into fountain pens and was pressured to buy weird glittery ink. Then I realized that nobody actually writes with these things. I used to be into Lego until it was more about collecting boxes than actually building things. 3D printing, photography, sex toys. The list goes on. You can find stories like these everywhere online. And if you want, you can put your story about this in the comments and then also like and subscribe, #engagement. One of the worst examples of this happening I could find was with books? Books are free, gang. They're free as audiobooks from Overdrive, they're cheap as ebooks, they're free from the library. In this very thing, have more books than could ever fit on my shelves. So girlies on TikTok, why are we spending 30 bucks on a hardcover book that we don't even know if we're gonna like it yet?
111 books. I've read 31 of them.
I'm reading a book about the NRA. What are you, a cop? Now let me say I'm the biggest hater. But I'm sure you've noticed that every corner of the internet has been subsumed into the advertising industrial complex like a hungry, like me when I'm hungry, and like when your mom went sorry. For example, you want to learn to play guitar, so where do you start? The internet. You go on the subreddit for guitar, but it's not really about learning to play guitar anymore. It's for people to show off all the guitars they have, and then you're like, oh man, my guitar sucks. So better get a new guitar. From experience. Then they're showing off the pedals, then they're showing off the amps and the MIDI controllers. You go on YouTube and every good guitarist has all of this stuff. So then suddenly you look around and your house looks like Andrew Huang's studio and you don't even know how to play Wonderwall. Okay, so allow me to stop being a hater for a second and look within. Why is my hobby just buying things? I think if I leave that in, the comments are gonna be, why is my hobby just buying things? Nope. Why is my hobby just buying things to start new hobbies? Let me think about it. I bought these pickleball paddles, which I am not going to gesture with, as a commitment to playing pickleball with my friends. Why? Because I like hanging out with my friends outside. Those are things that make me happy. I bought these 2 pickleball paddles to achieve happiness. So do I play pickleball with my friends? Fucking no! Look, see? Plastic's still on them. Not once! So back to Baudrillard, because I have actually read a book, argues that in a consumerist society, rather than pursuing happiness directly, we pursue signs of happiness, material signs of happiness. These paddles do not make me happy, but they are signs of happiness. When I bought them, I was buying the idea of playing outside with my friends. But really, I probably could have just borrowed a pickleball paddle or like used one at the local club. All right, one more for you freaks at home. There we go. Okay, this is a really stupid and obvious example, but nearly everything we buy is some sort of attempt at buying a sign of happiness. Unless it's buying convenience, I guess, come to think of it. Whatever, it's one of the two. Affluence is, in effect, merely the accumulation of signs of happiness. But the creepiest part of consumerism, other than the fact that it's cooking the planet and all that, we'll get there, is
that it
makes us feel like or gives us the hope of one day being included in a community. It actually turbocharges the loneliness epidemic until we all become incels surrounded by Magic the Gathering cards. That's not a fair play. They have Friday Night Magic. That's a literal community. Yu-Gi-Oh cards? And I know at this point when I'm just bashing consumerism, it probably sounds like some blue-haired screeching. Like I'm over here with a corkboard and in the middle of it, it just says capitalism bad and all the red lines are connected to it. But hear me out. We here in Canada, just like in the US, live in hyper-individualist communities. We don't know our neighbors, we rely on paid services and apps rather than on each other, you know, the mutual exchange of favors that makes up a society, to the point where for some reason, everyone in the suburbs has an identical garage full of identical tools that they use like once a month tops. That's obviously wasteful and bad for the planet, but it also just like pulls us apart. And the more isolated and alienated we feel, the more we buy. It's a real thing. It's called compensatory consumption, where objects take the place of social connections. And it becomes a vicious cycle, a cycle that businesses are very aware of, and it is lucrative. They've dubbed it the loneliness economy, and it's worth billions. Oh God, my finances are slipping. All my rich buddies, Kyle, Lyle, Jerry, they're all gonna know I'm only pulling 7 figures this year. They're not gonna wanna be friends with a broke loser like me. I'm never gonna make it into the VIP section of the country club. But wait, what if this feeling could be monetized? Larry, call a board meeting. We're inventing the loneliness economy. As consumption and economic growth increases, the loneliness epidemic gets worse. And loneliness is, allegedly, as bad for us as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. which is why a drunk ciggy outside the bar with my friends actually increases my lifespan. Get it twisted! This isn't some newfangled, dirty foot Gen Z take. Bowling Alone, one of the first major books about the loneliness epidemic, was written in 2000, and it blamed modern loneliness and hyper-individualism, at least partly, on materialism and even economic growth and prosperity. If 2000 was an era that celebrated personal goods and private initiative over shared public concerns, then what the hell is this? I think Shel Bisley, who has a great video about this, put it best when she said,
when I say individualism is consumerism, there are so many things that we own that we would not have to own and therefore would not have to be produced if we just weren't so individualistic.
And the lonelier we get, the more we turn to not only buying stuff, but online communities and online influencers. And brands are actively spending advertising dollars to get users on online consumption communities to basically do their free labor. There's a paper about it. Meanwhile, it's content creators, influencers, my job to keep people on the platform so that they can be advertised to, so that they can be served more promises of happiness as long as they buy the so-called signs of happiness. But if we can't achieve happiness through buying signs of happiness, how can we achieve it? Clearly you'd like a blue-haired, screeching lefty who's made some really good life decisions to tell you how to be happy. Well, I'll tell you, but you're not gonna like it. It's other people. Human connections and relationships are the biggest predictor of happiness, and it's not even close. Money, love, being hot, getting bitches, none of them are as statistically likely to make you happy as having a community and social ties. Unless it's a community of bitches that you got, I guess. Anyway, so by buying this stuff, we're not just buying the sign of happiness that the thing represents, we're also buying the feeling of being included in a community of other people who buy the same stuff. But it's not a community. It's a subreddit. I'm not trying to shame anybody for buying stuff. I'm trying to convince you of two things. First, that buying stuff probably isn't gonna make you happier. Products can make your life more convenient. This thing is keeping me from chewing my cuticles off. Haha. But never more fulfilling. And once you're free from this idea that once you buy just this thing or that thing, you'll finally be happy, you can start to pursue things in life that actually do make you happy, which, my God, listening back to myself sounds so cheesy and like sanctimonious. But it's literally quantifiably true. Sorry, gang. My second point is that that is to say, those of us who are somewhat well-to-do, living in rich countries, have a unique opportunity and responsibility to the rest of the world, to the climate, not to be ethical consumers, but to fight back against the climate-fucking, human rights eviscerating consumption machine that placates us in the rich world and also somehow makes us miserable, while colonizing, polluting, and plundering, and fucking the rest of the world. And you might say, but Hazel, 100 companies are responsible for 70% of all the emissions. How am I supposed to do? Yeah, dude, they're making gas for our cars and clothes for our Shein hauls. Household consumption accounts for 60% of all emissions, and presumably the other 40% is the US military, but, well, whatever. And that's not including all the other horrifying consequences of, extracting resources from the earth at fucking turbo speed. But that gives you agency. It's not your fault, and you can do something about it. You can fight for things like human rights and decent wages all throughout the production chain through legislation, or things like right to repair laws that reduce tech waste, or fighting fossil fuel companies that not only keep us reliant on oil, which you already know, but also plastic. Man, all this shit is made of oil. That's kind of a bummer. Or, yes, by buying less shit. And that's not only just abstaining from buying things, but in a community, it's much easier to get things secondhand or to borrow them. And by doing all of this, we can actually make a measurable, positive difference in the world more than, just buying the thing with the leaf on its packaging that probably still sucks just as much. And the more people rely on each other, the less we rely on Amazon and Uber. And I don't care how much you hate other people, you should hate Amazon and Uber more. The problem of consumerism isn't just whether you should or shouldn't buy whatever stupid shit you saw on the TikTok TikTok store. It's about our hyper-consumerist culture slowly devouring itself like an Ouroboros eating its own ass, along with literally all of our hobbies and interests and subcultures fit into one big homogenized slop of consumption culture. Cool! God, can you believe it's still sweater weather outside? Like, where is this climate change I've been promised? So this video has been a lot of yapping about myself. I almost never talk about my life in like the short Instagram, TikTok stories. So everyone say good job, Hazel, for sharing. But let me leave you off with this. Oh my God. I told you a lot about how consuming this or that thing never made me any happier, but right now I am the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. And it's because I've surrounded myself with people and community all the time. And all those little facts about it being the biggest predictor of happiness were totally true in my case. Ugh. And some of my community I've actually bought with money. My co-working space, my softball team, my improv classes, my besties' beer habits aren't cheap either. But all of that is pretty cheap compared to the price of buying stuff. So, am I telling you to buy less stuff? Yes, obviously. But mainly what I'm telling you to do is look around. Do you have a community? And do the scary thing and take the jump to find other people who care about that thing too. They'll probably have a goddamn pickleball paddle to lend you. Blah.